Hey guys, it's been a while since I posted a video. It's 2022 July 10th as of the recording of this video, and I've missed making content like this. Like, this video is going to be welcome back to YouTube, what to expect, because I am actually going to focus more on YouTube and kind of do more tutorials, more unboxings, more some of my favorite software, my workflow, stuff like that. I think would be very useful as opposed to just being an Instagram celebrity. And right now, the big thing that I'm working on, and have been working on for a while now with the company, has been Dolby Atmos. That's one thing I want to drive into this video, and for any future producer, is to get your content into Atmos, immersive format. It is the next sort of evolution to content consumption, or how people listen to music. It's been around for like the last 10 years in cinema. It's not a new thing, but it is new in music, and how a producer like myself, or studio musicians, or anyone mixes music. The whole experience is completely different. So I'm not going to get into the weeds about it, but creatively, Atmos opens up a lot of potentials. Definitely look into that as a producer and musician. Look into that because that is going to be the next step in the music industry. And platforms like Apple Music, Tidal, Amazon are pushing really hard. Deezer as well. They're pushing really hard for people to send over Atmos mixes for the platform into their stores. So there you go. My studio, I think that would be the next big thing. This is studio version number 1, which I had a long time ago. I'd say I probably made it 10 years ago. It lasted me about 3 years, and then about 3 to 4 years I kept that studio desk and I handmade it, and it was something that I was really proud of at the time, and it was more than most people had too. Fast forward, I made studio version number 2, and this is it right here. And it was actually really nice. I was always a fan of cable management, clean, open spaces. I'm one of those guys that the head does not function unless it's clean, it's organized. It could be OCD, I'm not really sure. And anyway, so studio version number 2, it was clean, but it wasn't proper. It was still 2 office desks, mushed together. I liked the wood, everything was high quality. Fast forward into, I think, the year before COVID, I got studio desk number 3, and this is it right here. And currently, my current desk, and by far my favorite, was specifically customized and colored for me because I requested these specific dimensions, and this is it. Overall, functionality and looks-wise, it is my favorite desk by far, and I'm extremely happy with it. I don't see myself upgrading for a very, very long time. Essentially, my entire room is dedicated and centralized to this desk. So let's start out from the left. So on the left is most of the digital stuff. So I try to keep sort of digital and analog in 2 different places. So on the left side, there isn't much on the rack. I do plan to buy some storage space that I can rack mount. Hopefully it's not too loud because I'm starting to run out of space. With this Blackmagic camera, it consumes a lot of data, and I'm getting to the point where I have to pick and choose what I want to preserve. On the bottom left is my PC. It is a little bit of a monster. So there is a Ryzen 9 something CPU in there. It's like a 16 core. I have the RTX 2070, which I don't plan to upgrade for a while because I do like gaming on the side. That card is more than enough to drive most 4K games at a really good frame rate, and it's water cooled, and that's probably why. And that's what you're thinking. What the hell is that big black box next to it? That's a that's like a 2-inch deep 4 fan radiator, and because of that, when the PC is under load, mostly when I'm gaming, I don't hear the fans. It helps a lot when recording as well because the fans are at the lowest speeds. I don't hear anything. The rack up there has a 8-channel power selector, so I use those to turn off peripherals like my ATEM Mini or my Ninja 5 that I don't always need to have on. Camera power also doesn't need to be on. Anything that I feel like can be turned off because I don't like to have excess waste can be turned off. So now moving over to sort of the left center, all my peripheral connections. On the left you have this 12, I think it's a 12 port. So there's got 12 USB peripherals. I believe every single one of them is being used to connect either the keyboards, to connect my webcams, to connect my MIDI peripherals because I have multiple keyboards. And then the center of my console has my massive 43-inch Samsung 3840 by 1200. It's basically half 4K. And then the bottom one is a full 4K 16 by 9 widescreen. So there is the screens. On the left I have this Zoom Live Track L8 that I use to capture recordings for gaming and live streams, where I need to separate sort of the speakers and then also the myself and then any digital media input that needs to go through, so like the PC or cell phone or a collar. This is such a great little device for doing that. And then we have the ATEM Mini, like I mentioned, and this actually connects to 2 cameras plus the my PC. So when I do live streams or when I'm doing presentations for work, I have 2 cameras, and then I have the PC input, so I can overlay myself and my screen all at once, and I can switch between different camera inputs. So it's such a great little device. My keyboard is a Corsair K95, fantastic little thing. It's made of aluminum and it's very rigid. I have two mice, a gaming Razer white thing. I don't know what the model number is. And then the Slim Blade, which is my favorite mouse for music production, because your hands, just the fact that it's in one place and then all you have to do is move the trackball. It's such a useful little mouse. We have the Machine Micro Mark II, which is really fun. I'm not much of a machinist, but I'm still learning. Really what I use it for is I use it to trigger chords in a key signature to the sequential Prophet 6, right? And that's really what I use this for. I haven't really made any beats at all, so but definitely, yeah, this is such a very useful little pad for triggering chords. And then we have the sequential Prophet 6. This is the newest addition to my studio as far as instruments. This thing sounds amazing, and I've only had a few weeks to play it as of this date. So I'm going to continue to try to make some patches, to make songs, and to record with Prophet 6 module. Below that, I have the Lox-G P20, and I made a review on this a while back ago, and there was actually a lot of questions still on that video that I need to answer, but a lot of them were, did I replace the power supply? Did I change the tubes? And so yes and no. I did not change the power supply yet. I'm looking into other ones potentially, but it sounds really good already. But I did change the tubes, and the tubes made a huge difference in the sound. It's much wider. It is definitely warmer. You will need some decent headphones to really pick it up, but definitely what stands out the most with the changed tubes is sound field. You have such a large space when you're listening to it. And I also highly suggest using open back headphones. So I modified my DT 990s, so now they're balanced. You can see 2 individual connections right there. So they're both balanced, and the connector I'm using is a 4-pin XLR, this guy right here. Anyway, so it sounds amazing. So I use that when I listen back to music, when I'm listening to just my own stuff. Good music listening headphones. And then on the right, this is where a lot of the switching happens and where all of the audio centralizes, is on the right side of the studio. So on the top, another 8-channel power switcher. Under that, there is a Pro VLA 2 compressor, which I personally love. I use it on my acoustic guitar all the time. It is tube, but it is more transparent than what you think a tube amp will do. So I highly recommend that for anyone who's on a budget. It's like $250, maybe $300. Fantastic compressor. Underneath that, I have a patch bay, which everything is connected to. So the outputs to my synthesizer, the outputs to my guitar amps, and I'll talk about that in a second. All of the inputs and outputs to my audio interface, which is the Steinberg 816C, and I love this thing to death. It's my favorite interface by far. So the patch bay really has all of the ins and outs. When you're building a studio, it's probably not the first thing you want to do, because you're going to start small. When you start to add gear to your studio, to your desk, then you start to realize, holy shit, I need to swap stuff around. That is so useful in this situation. So when you start to acquire gear, that a patch bay comes in handy so much. Next, the heart of my entire audio operation is the 816C by Steinberg. It is an incredibly flexible and useful, and the preamps on this sound pretty damn good. I have no complaints. It hasn't crashed. It hasn't clipped on me. It hasn't disconnected. It has been so reliable since day one. And then we have the last 2 pieces which are connected together is the microphone preamps by Art again. Once again, like I said, I bought these because they're very inexpensive. I don't do any group or band tracking, so I just need a few ins and outs when it comes to microphone inputs. So this does a stereo input or 2 mono inputs. It is tube based, so it does sound pretty nice when it's driven pretty high. And then the bottom part, we have at the bottom right is sort of my guitar stack. We have 2 amps. At the top we have the Hughes & Kettner Tubemeister Deluxe, and this is such a cute little amp. They're both really cute, to be honest, but they sound amazing. They're all tube. I think the Rev D20 is more tubey than the Deluxe. But so the Deluxe, I believe the Deluxe's distortion goes through a chip, but honestly, it sounds pretty freaking good. And then the D20 is all tube. The gain is actually being done through tube distortion, which sounds really good as well. Let's see, both the amps I have no cabinet for, and this is the main reason I got these two. Oh, they have a DI in the back with a cab simulator. That's one of the biggest reasons why I got these two amps. I hook up an XLR in the back and it goes directly into my interface. Basically, I have a cab mic'd to my interface. I don't have to disturb the neighbors, and I can record really late at night, so those are really useful. They do get really toasty, but that's one of the sort of cool features about tube equipment. But yeah, so I like these two. So the Deluxe, I use the gain and all of its stuff just built in. I don't need to use these pedals. But for the Rev D20, the Rev D20 is best described as a pedal platform amplifier. So if any of you guys have a nice tone through your pedals, you want to run it through a D20 like this. My pedals, when it comes to recording, I have a very basic setup. I have a tuner. It does completely bypass when it is tuning, which is good. So I have the Ego, which compresses the clean signal, and then I send it over to the Tumnus. That really makes it even fatter and gives it a nice overdrive. So most of the settings I have on Noon, because I don't need too much gain. And then if I want to overdrive the Tumnus, I turn off the Ego and then use the Friedman OD Deluxe, BE-OD Deluxe, which is a fantastic overdrive pedal. And that's really the last piece on the chain before it hits the D20. And I believe that's it. And the last thing I want to add are my studio monitors. I have two pairs of JBLs. I have the smaller JBL, God, I forgot, here's the name of those monitors, and then the LSR 4300s. These are my main mixing monitors. My next goal for the studio will be to create a fully Dolby Atmos mixing room. Probably not this room, I'll probably move into a different place, but I do plan to make my studio Atmos capable through actual speakers, not headphone emulation. So that's it, and I guess some parting words would be, this did not happen overnight. Like I said, my first iteration of the studio was very small keyboard, running off a laptop, and I slowly built my equipment list as I started to make more money, as I started to sort of balance myself out. But the most important thing is, and one of the things that I kind of learned late, that I wish I knew sooner, was that master the small list of equipment or software that you have right now. The gear doesn't make you sound good. The software doesn't make you sound good. The amount of equipment doesn't make you sound good. It looks cool, but it doesn't make you sound any good at all. You have to master that equipment, master that software first, and start small, then slowly add to your repertoire. But every piece that you add to your studio, you should be very proficient at. After that, don't forget the fun in writing music. Don't forget the reason you're doing this is for the fun, for the excitement, all right? Mindset is so important. One of the things that I do to stay creative is to work out. I listen to ebooks. I go out. I don't stay in the studio too often or too long, because it does get exhausting. So keep up the good habits. Continue writing. And send me any questions. I'm looking forward to growing this channel, to adding more content, and hopefully maybe collaboration with a bunch of you musicians and players out there. I'd be so happy to do that. Peace out.